this is how the podcast starts. And I had a question that I wanted to ask to open up the podcast originally, but I've changed it now to, when you encounter a situation like you encountered today, where you've had calls all morning, and then all of a sudden you have to jump on a podcast, and your computer asks you to update your Chrome browser. Does that affect you in any way? And if so, how do you manage that? How do you navigate that?
It's such a good question because it's such a human question. Because life is always throwing us unpredictable things that don't work out entirely what we think might be right. And so the thing about gaining regulation of our nervous system, which is what I help people do, is that the more that I can consistently do something called neural exercises, and I really think of that just like a rep at the gym, like I'm consistently working out my body. That means that, if I needed to, I could run into this building and help somebody who's in a fire, and I could quickly do it. My body has the capacity for it because I've been training for that. Not for that moment, but I have the ability to be in that moment. And when we're consistently working out our nervous system and bringing it into regulation more and more, the result of that is when problems happen, what in quotations problems, things that don't go right happen, instead of me going into a pretty extreme distress response or big dysregulation, when I'm exercising my nervous system enough, it feels like a bump in the road. So instead of life feeling like it's this crashing 50-foot waves up and down and I'm just in this boat barely hanging on, the more I regulate, the more it's really manageable, easy waves. And so it's not to say that I feel cavalier about it because I was really like, oh no, I emailed my assistant to reach out to you because I wasn't here. But because I have a safety inside from doing this work consistently for a very long time, I know it's going to be okay, no matter what. Even if we're about to get on stage with 10,000 people live, it's okay. Meaning, I'm not going to die. My nervous system knows that inside. So I might feel a little distress, but not nearly to the degree that I, to humanize myself here, spent the majority of my life totally dysregulated and actually not even functional in my life. So this work is really possible for each of us.
Yeah. And that's encouraging to hear, because I think people believe that those who are practitioners or who have expertise in a certain area, people see them as, okay, they figured it out. It's the job is done for them. They've arrived. But it seems like we're constantly in progress, which leads me to the following question for you, Sarah. What is the common trait of the people who seek your help and assistance? What is it that they have in common?
The first is, actually, I just want to say this before I answer that. For folks listening, I just want to comment on the thing you just said before this, and then I'll answer that question. It is so common to feel like the people helping us have everything figured out and they are at some endpoint or something like that. And that endpoint doesn't actually exist. And every single person that everyone listening looks up to or admires in any particular way, including Oprah or whomever else you think is great, they still, as they expand into, which will lead me to this next thing, expand into a bigger life, meaning I want more for myself. I want to do this. I want deeper intimacy in my relationship. I want to be more vulnerable. You can be with someone for 20 years and not have deep vulnerability. So if I said, I really want that, we're going to be confronted with dysregulation in our nervous system as we do that. That's the name of the game. And so I just want to say, we're never complete. There are things I'm personally working on in my life right now that as I step towards them, I have parts of me that are showing up and my nervous system saying, I don't think that's safe. And that means I'm experiencing more dysregulation. So I think for everybody listening, I just want you to know that this is a human experience. We are not alone in this. And as we continue to live a bigger life, that is what is going to happen. And which brings me to that response to your second question about what are the commonality of these people that come to me. And the biggest commonality is that they're mammals. I know it's a weird response, but because all of us mammals have something called an autonomic nervous system that lives in our bodies. And this nervous system inside of us that should be taught in every elementary school, it should be taught in every prison system, foster care system, hospital, everywhere. This system is responsible for our thoughts. So it is the vehicle that's responsible for them. It's responsible for how we feel at any given moment. It's responsible for the sensations in our bodies. This is a big one. It's responsible for every behavior that I have ever had in my life or anything behavior I've inhibited and haven't done. It's also responsible for how I perceive myself, others, and the world around me. So it is literally the center of our entire experience. And whether we are experiencing this system in regulation or not is really the foundational deciding factor on if I can live the full life that I desire. So people come to me because, number one, they have this system inside of themselves. Number two, they don't know how to be in control of it, so it's running the show, which means we aren't living the lives we are desiring. So that looks like a lot of things, but I would say overall that means I'm living a smaller version of a life than I feel called to or am I desiring, whether that's in my community or relationships or purpose, or I just can't seem to feel at peace in my body or feel good. I'm incessantly in anxiety or on the go or feeling trapped or shut down and hopeless. And then that permeates out to all other areas like our relationships, our purpose, our health in our bodies, and so many other things. Those are the commonalities. So the people that I work with, it's so exciting that we can do this online because there's folks from every corner of the globe, every continent, people whom are struggling, feeling debilitated in their lives, not being able to get out of bed, to people who are names that listeners would know in the world, and therapists. I have lots of therapists I work with, and CEOs and musicians and everybody, because again, as I said, everybody has this system inside of themselves.
I love it. And you said dysregulation. The first time I heard that term was probably in 2014 when I became a foster parent. That was the first time I learned about this, and it was heavily related to attachment. And I could go deep into it, but I'm curious if you could help us understand, what does dysregulation or regulation look like in terms of behaviors and also in terms of feelings? I think a lot of people struggle to connect with their bodies and the sensations that are coming up, and thus having emotions and relationship to emotions that maybe are signaling not the wrong thing, because I think the nervous system, as you say, is actually doing the right thing all the time, but we're interpreting it maybe what's the right word? Not wrong way, but poorly. That's the best term I can find. Help me find words, please.
Well, so this system that lives inside of us, that lives inside of every mammal, and I like to always say that because I think humans, we can tend to think we're so superior, but really we're just animals like all the other beautiful mammals. And this system inside of us has two options. It is the option to put us into regulation, what you named, or something called dysregulation. Now, regulation only happens when our nervous system thinks we're safe. So the cool thing about this autonomic nervous system, it has something called it's called neuroception. It's a threat detector. It lives in our brainstem. Every millisecond of our lives, like your precious child, it looks out into the world and it says, is that safe, dangerous, or life-threatening? So anything we ever encounter, it is sussing that out, which is so brilliant that it can do that. Now, the way that it decides if any given moment of my life is safe, dangerous, or life-threatening is by looking to an internal database in our brains that we all have. And you can think of it like a computer system. Like that example you gave, your foster child, who in their database, they had a lot of information in there. Every lived experience they ever had. I have it, you have it, everybody has it. So we don't have to remember all those things. They're all in there. That means that the beautiful, wonderful things are in there, the loving moments, um, also the hard moments, and also the really dangerous stuff is all in there too. So when the threat detector looks out into the world, it's saying, okay, like right now, I'm having this chat with you, and my threat detector is hearing your voice, and it says, what intel do we have on voices like that? And my system, I know it likes the sound of your voice because I feel good with you. So my system must have looked to that database and said, oh, that's safe. That's good. And in a moment, if it decides I'm safe, it allows me to go into what's called regulation. It's called our ventral vagal complex. But when we're here, again, we only go here when not the threat detector has said we're safe. And I really believe it is the thing that we are all searching for and we don't even realize it. That we cannot have the full happy life we want without experiencing predominantly regulation in our nervous system. So when we're here, we experience things like presence. We're actually here in this moment. We're not in any other moment, but this one. We'll notice things in our body or feelings in our system, like feeling open, expanded, curious, available, silly, playful, in wonder. We feel like we can just be ourselves. We'll notice sensations like ease in our body. We've got just the right amount of energy, not too much, not too little. We'll notice that we feel really connected to everything around us, people, nature, because humans want to be connected. We will notice that we feel warm in our body, not overheated, not cold. The tension will release in our bodies. And it's really like the porridge isn't too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. Everything is just right when we're here. Even if there's life things that are happening, because there's always life things that are happening, there's this feeling like there's going to be enough time. It's going to work out. I'm not in a hurry. It's okay if these things don't get complete because I'm okay. And this is how we step into the bigger life we want. This is necessary for healing. This is what actually results in our healing work. And it's what's necessary to live the lives we are desiring. And then when we're here, the most ordinary moment, we don't need a lot of stuff when we're here. The most ordinary moment on today's a Thursday, I can just go outside and say, the air feels really nice. The grass feels nice. That squirrel's pretty cool. And that's it. I feel really contented to be here. And so it is really the answer to not only what healing brings, but happiness. Now, for those listening, if you're saying, that sounds like something you can only feel when you're on a beach in Fiji, but I can't even feel it when I'm there in Fiji, I'm still not relaxed. Just know that makes sense. And the reason is because the way that threat detector works, as I mentioned, is it has that database that it looks to. So if and I have quite a serious complex trauma history, not very different than a lot of children in the foster care system probably had. I was abused and neglected as a child for a very long period of time and lots of other stuff too. So for most of my life, guess what was in the database? A lot of experiences of people were dangerous. They hurt me. I was not safe to be myself. As a child, there was nobody there. So when I was trying to self-regulate, which you can't self-regulate as a baby, I couldn't. So it was like terror. It wasn't safe to be seen, to use my voice, to receive, to belong, and so on and so forth. So that meant as I went out into the world, there's a lot of people in the world. And everywhere I went, my system said, oh, people are dangerous, especially men, because I was abused by men. Men are dangerous. Connection is dangerous. Using your voice is dangerous. Being seen is dangerous. Being relaxed is dangerous. And so as the result of that, the way that threat detector works is it's not looking for perfect matches. It's looking for similarities. So there was certainly a time in my life where I would meet with you, Carl, and my threat detector would say, oh, man, he's going to hurt you. And I wouldn't feel relaxed with you. I would feel tense, on edge. I would feel like you wanted something from me or wanted to harm or hurt me, which is not true about who you are at all. But you had one match. You were a man. And so that's the way the threat detector works. So in a millisecond, it superimposes the past on the present. And it thinks that even though you're this wonderful, safe man, it thinks that, no, he probably isn't based on what I have in the database. So as the result of that, that meant for me spending most of my time not in regulation, but in what's called dysregulation. Because my system was saying, you're not safe. The world isn't a safe place based on this database I have. And so when we experience dysregulation, I like to think of it like, not even, this is what neuroscience actually says it is, it's active self-protection. So it's not that my system is broken, dysfunctional, or malfunctioning. It is actively working to keep me safe. And there are three predominant ways, only three, that we can experience this. And they're called states. So think of it like an experience. And there's, of course, lots of range in these experiences. But one of them is called our sympathetic nervous system. And when our threat detector thinks we're in danger, but it can do something about the danger, like I think I can fight back, I can get away, I can do something here. We go to this place. And I'm going to try it on for people. So you're going to hear it in my voice, and someone's probably going to say, she's talking too fast. I don't like how that sounds, but I want you to hear it and feel it in my body. So when we're here, this is all about mobilization. So there's lots of energy in my system, kind of like I'm exploding with energy. And it feels like there's a ticking time bomb in the corner of the room. There's not enough time. I have to do it now. If I don't do it now, things are going to be okay. My thoughts are going to be racing about how I have to prevent against the bad thing. Maybe the person's mad at me. Oh my gosh, they didn't text me back. Should I text them again? Maybe I should. If we don't get this fight back in order and I'm not connected to you, I'm going to die. I'll notice that my heart is racing. There's tension in my body. I have tunnel vision. I literally can't think about anything else but this problem at hand. I'm going to notice tension all down my spine, heat in my body. A lot of time we can have TMJ when we're here. Migraines will happen. There's butterflies in my stomach. I feel like I can't sit still. I just need to move. But when I solve one problem, there's just another problem that comes around. Like you're like, I have to get to all these emails today. And your partner says, I thought we were going to go for a walk. It's 5. And you're like, but I have to do these emails right now. And they're saying, well, do you really? And your system's going to tell you, yes, you're going to die if you don't do the emails now. Everything's going to fall apart. You don't check your bank account again. So this is all about the mobilizing. Do. This is where anxiety, worry, frustration, fear, terror, rage all live. This is what capitalism is actually built on. Do. Produce, go. And when we're here, we have a difficulty slowing down. Even on the weekend, you can't fully relax. That's all the clue of being in that state. Now, we have 2 other options I just want to briefly give folks. Another one is called our dorsal vagal complex. Now, this is the opposite of that mobilizing. The mobilizing is like, I'm running away from a cheetah. I got to get away. I got to go. Now, when our threat detector says, whoa, the danger is so big that I don't think we're going to be able to make it out of this. When I learned this about our nervous systems, I just thought, like, I can't believe we have something inside of us that loves us this much. And it literally says, my darling, I can't make this stop and I can't get you away from it. But what I can do is I can help you leave your body so you don't have to feel the perpetual pain of what I can't stop. And I just hope for everyone listening, as I'm about to explain this system to you, this state, that you can see how loving that is. Like, even when people have given up on you, like your foster child had people for sure give up on them, that their nervous system didn't. It said, I've got you. I'm here. I will never let you down because I love you so much. So when the threat, especially, in childhood, let's say, was happening and I couldn't get away, maybe I was chronically bullied in school. Maybe my caregivers were preoccupied and they were so busy with other things they couldn't tend to me. Maybe they were dangerous. Our system says it is too much to be with that perpetual activation or trauma, that energy in my body. It's too much. So we're going to help you leave your body so you don't have to be with this. And so in the wild, every animal does this. It's so brilliant. Like the zebra that's about to be eaten by the cheetah, its system, so it doesn't have to feel the pain of getting eaten alive, it helps it to leave its body so it doesn't have to be there for it, which is just so cool. I spent a long time here. So this is all about energy conservation. It's the exact opposite of what I just described. It's all about the shutting down. Think of it like a bear hibernating. So when we're here, and I'm going to show this state so different, this is all about leaving my body. So it's like the light switch is turning off. When I'm here, I notice that even if I slept, I feel tired. This is where apathy lives. Like, I just don't care. The things that would normally light me up, they just don't matter. I start to feel far away from people in the world. Even though I'm deeply alone and I feel lonely, I feel so far away. I just want to curl under the covers and hide. My thoughts are going to be much slower, but they're all going to be intense. Like, it's too late for me. There's something so wrong with me. This is where shame lives. I'm bad. I'll never amount to anything. I can't do this. The relationship is hopeless. We'll feel numb in our body, so not connected to our feelings at all. We might notice that we feel weightless, like we're floating above ourselves, not really have a sense of our bodies. Difficulty making eye contact, difficulty talking about anything, avoiding things. Our senses are muted, so everything will feel fuzzy or even like gray. Very hard to say hello to people in the world. We start to feel depressed. I said hopeless, incapable, unable. This is where dissociation lives. It's all that shutting down. And then very lastly, we have one last state we can go to of self-protection, and it's called freeze. Very, very common one that's often misunderstood, but it's a combo state. So imagine we're combining this intense sympathetic energy, go, 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 with this shutdown of dorsal. So we've got this hibernating bear met with this running cheetah. They come together. They're two equal and opposite forces. So intensity met with like a steel wall. And so what this feels like in our bodies is I have all this energy inside, but I'm trapped in it. So I have everything I described with sympathetic, that bursts of energy and tension in my body, but I can't mobilize and do anything. And so a couple simple examples of what this can look like. Let's say I get a text from a family member who I have a complex relationship with, and they write something, and I notice that I feel this activation around it. And I sympathetic, like, oh, I have anxiety, but then I avoid it. I'll do that later. And then I think about it all day. Shoot, I gotta write that person. Now I'll do it later. And then I think about it all day and then I don't do it. Or like your bank statement gets emailed to you, but you just don't open it, but you have anxiety about it, but you can't do it. More extreme example. Let's say you're like, I'm going to step into my purpose. I'm excited about it. Your nervous system will actually let you feel excited about it until you mobilize towards it. So it's like people do that in a relationship. They're reading a romance novel or watching the show. Oh, that's so exciting. But then the moment I actually go towards it, my nervous system says, don't do that. So let's say starting a business. I sit at my computer and I'm like, okay, I need a website. I need this thing. Oh my gosh, someone else has already taken my idea. I'm not going to be able to do it now because they're taking my idea. It's too late for me. Who am I anyway? And I have all this urgency, but then I feel shut down. Like I can't do it. There's too much to do. I need to take a nap. No, but I have to do it. But I can't. But I have to. But I can't. But I have to. But I can't. And then I go organize the toiletry drawer in my bathroom because that's something I can actually do. But then I think about this all day and then 8 hours goes by and your partner says, how's your day? And you're like, I did nothing, but I'm so exhausted. That's freeze. So most of us are living a life predominantly in one of those three states of dysregulation. And it's all because our nervous system doesn't yet know we're safe.
My friends, I want to interrupt this podcast just for 30 seconds to say that if you made it this far and up until this point, you haven't taken the time to either subscribe to the podcast or follow it on whatever platform you're listening on, to please do so. And if you have been enjoying this episode and previous episodes leading up to this one, to please go and rate and review. It helps a ton, and it only allows me to do a better job at producing these episodes for you and potentially getting more guests that can provide some amazing insight. So with that being said, thank you so much, and back to the episode. Yeah, that's very relatable and a lot at the same time. And I imagine this comes from a lot of the work that's done around polyvagal theory, which I know you have been a student of for a while, and you practice it through somatic therapy. And I'm curious what is, first of all, somatic therapy or somatic experiencing, but how through somatic experience experiencing, do you assist people in navigating their nervous system and then learning to regulate, especially when they are in one of these states that seem to either feel hopeless or very frozen?
Well, somatic work, which is finally becoming more mainstream, thank goodness, is still quite misunderstood. So the word somatics really means the language of our nervous system, language of our body. And so our nervous systems, and I kind of think I'm an interpreter for them. I hope they don't mind. Nervous system, do you mind how I speak on your behalf? No, okay, good. That's weird. I should probably have a children's cartoon on myself and the nervous system. But anyway, my job is to speak the language of it and help other people do that. So the thing about it is, in terms of understanding this language, which is somatics, I want people to imagine like I was guiding people through a course on, what could we have a course on? Maybe a course on porcupines. I don't know why that came to me, but they're cute. So let's say we have a cognitive course on porcupines, and you've never seen a porcupine in your life, but we take this course together where I teach you the evolution of porcupines. I talk about how their mating process, how long the young gestates for, all the details, and you would gain cognitive understanding. So, meaning that happens up in your brain, your prefrontal cortex, or the big thinking part of your brain where rationalization, thought, all of that occurs. And I could gain a lot of good understanding of it. Now, let's say I said that we're going to take a somatic course on porcupines. So that means we're going to ditch the textbook and we are going to go out into nature and we are going to see where porcupines live. And Carl is going to say, I really want to touch them. And I'm going to say, Carl, don't though, because something bad will happen if you touch them. But we're going to get close to them and see them and experience them in their environment. And I'm going to notice what happens in my body as I am having this real life lived experience. And let's say, maybe this isn't a great example because I would want you to be able to touch them. But let's say you could pick up a porcupine and they didn't pop out their quills. You'd feel them too. I'd be able to smell them and feel them and hold them and notice what happens in my body as I do that. That's what somatics is all about. So one of the big problems that I see folks get into that is not a fault of their own, that I got into, it's the fault of my field, mental health, is that when we're going out to seek support, because life is hard and it's not going the way I want and I need some help. If I go to my insurance provider or psychology today, I am going to likely get a cognitive approach, psychodynamic therapist, for example. Now, there's benefit to that, but that's like the course on the porcupines where I'm learning about porcupines. So you can go to a therapist where they tell you, like, again, with your child, they could say, you're safe now. You're safe now. Don't you see loving parents here? This is wonderful. It's so good. And I could cognitively understand that. Like I could understand in my own journey, okay, here's how I attach. This is why that's happening. It's based in my past. This is why I feel anxious about this particular thing. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It wasn't my fault. Like I could try to do all that. But the problem is the system that is causing the suffering I'm experiencing can't hear that. Which is why if anyone ever is feeling anxious about something, like you're about to go on a date and you feel anxious and you tell yourself, just calm down. It's going to be fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Or you're going to public speak and you're like, it's okay now. It's safe in the world. And you're like, I'm safe. I'm this adult now. I can do this. But your anxiety rises. That's because you're trying to talk to a system that literally cannot hear that language. The only language it can hear is somatics. And so that is, again, the language of the felt sense, the language of our bodies. So the work that I do is to help people. Number one, we have to understand the system that lives inside of you. I think of it like a vehicle. You have to understand your autonomic nervous system. You have to understand we have to understand what the different states feel like. And then from that place, what we can do is start to speak the language of it. So I really believe, and this is what research really shows, that nervous system regulation is the foundation of all healing. It needs to be the foundation of it. It is like, we can't build a house without this. Can't look at attachment without this. Can't look at our parts without this. Can't look at manifesting our life we want without this. Our health without this. So what I help people to do is we create an actual, I call it the highway of our nervous system, but we create a literal map. So I help folks to go through and sense into what does it feel like in these different places? Because can't change what I don't understand. And now there's actually 6 states in our nervous system. So if I can understand those states fully, that means at any moment, I know what is happening inside of me. And I know, it's so empowering, that the thoughts, feelings, sensations, behaviors, perception is all from that state. Then what I do is I give people therapeutic regulating resources. And these are things that we can do to talk to our nervous system. So this is speaking the language. And there are different things that we need to do to regulate based on where we are in our nervous system. And that as nervous system works becomes more mainstream, I get concerned because I see on Instagram people creating lists like, do these things to regulate your nervous system. And when I see it, I think, oh, that's so wrong, because you're telling someone to do something that's actually going to make their dysregulation worse. It's not right for that state. It's right for another state. So what I do is I guide through what exactly do we need for each state. And then what we do is we start doing consistent, what are called neural exercises. And these are like the reps at the gym. So what we know is we all have something called a vagal tone. That just means how your nervous system is currently shaped. And if we can consistently talk to it through these neural exercise or regulating resources, it starts to reshape. And so I walk folks through a process of how we consistently throughout our day begin doing these neural exercises or reps at the gym. And what we're looking for is a subtle shift. We're not looking for like, I just did this and now I feel like a Zen master. What we're looking for is, oh, I did this and my chest isn't so tight. I just took a deeper breath. That is huge. The only way that we actually regulate our nervous system is through these consistent neural exercises, and they gather up to become the life that we're desiring to live. Every single one of them actually gets stored in that database as what's called a disconfirming experience. So my nervous system gets to see, maybe I am safe. I'm not quite sure yet, but maybe I am. We do it again. Maybe I am. Maybe I am. And I want to share this is coming from somebody who I would wake up on the street and not know how I got there, like literally. I was suicidal, non-functional, incredible panic attack. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how I got places, severely chronically ill. And the only way that I have gained regulation of my nervous system is by doing this work, this somatic work. It changed everything. And if it can happen for me, it can happen for whomever is listening right now too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's very powerful. And I know we're limited on time, but can we just go through the 6 states and then maybe use a couple examples of how to connect with those different states accordingly?
Yeah, of course. So I just went through the 4 primary states. So, and then I can talk about how to connect with them, because I think that's really important. So we actually have 3 states of regulation. So we're going to qualify those as like, those are the good things we're wanting more of. We have that what's called our ventral vagal complex, part of the parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve, for anyone who likes the science behind all of this. Vagus nerve, vagus means wander. It's the biggest nerve in our body. And then we have 2 other fun states and one of regulation, and one's called play. And that's a blended state. So we've got that ventral energy, and think of it like we've got a splash or maybe like a half a cup of sympathetic. Sympathetic is where we're in that mobilized place. But when we have a small amount of that sympathetic energy with predominantly regulation, it's what allows us to be regulated, so feel good, but have bursts of energy and be silly and be playful and like have a game night and be fun and go to karaoke and do all the silly things and play with your children and all of that. Now, what happens a lot is if we're in play and we add too much sympathetic, we just go into sympathetic. So we see that with kids. They're playing and having so much fun, and then somebody shoves somebody else, and now there's a fight. And we're like, what happened? You were having so much fun, and now you're not. Because they went from play in their nervous system to sympathetic. And we adults don't get ruled out in that. You might be a competitive player of games, and all of a sudden you're playing a game, having fun, and then you're like, wait a minute, you cheated and blah, 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 and now I'm having an argument. So that's play. We have this other beautiful blended state of regulation called stillness. And stillness is, I am so here and present, but I'm slowing down. So it's predominantly that ventral, but I've got a splash of that dorsal experience. That slows me down a little. So imagine I'm watching a loved one sleep. And, I don't want to be loud. I just want to watch their beautiful face and take them in. Or I'm in prayer or meditation, or I'm watching the sunrise or a bird land outside my window. It would be really weird if my child was sleeping and I said, "You're such a cute sleeper." Like, that would be a weird response. It would wake them up and be startling. So a stillness allows us to have that slowing down. So that those 3 states of regulation, the reason we have that variety is so that we can navigate most things in life from a regulated place. And that's what we're looking to build more of in our lives. Now, we went through these other 3 states of, we have the sympathetic, which is like a cheetah running, go, 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 go. Or I'm rather trying to run away from the cheetah. Then we have, if the cheetah is about to bite me, I can't get away. We shut down, apathy, hopelessness, depression. And then we have this blended state of freeze, like a deer in headlights, have to, can't, have to, can't, have to, can't. All of them are brilliant, brilliant survival responses. And I just want to name this, that it's really common that we go from sympathetic to dorsal. So a simple example is, I'm having an argument with my partner. And I'm in sympathetic, and they're in sympathetic, and I just need them to hear me. And the thing is, when you try to fight while in dysregulation, you can't resolve the problem. So I can't even hear you because my thinking brain's turned off. So we're just talking at each other. And then eventually someone's system says, okay, I'm tapped out. And I go from caring so much to feeling like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You win, doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if this is over, even though that's not true. I really love you, but I don't care in this moment because I've gone to shut down. So the way that we regulate out of those 3 different places, I just want to share with people, is very, very different. And want to just give maybe a little bit of guidance on that. So when we're in this sympathetic mobilized place, what our nervous system needs to do is discharge or get rid of that energy. So I've got all this exploding energy in my body. And the way that I often describe it is like imagining we have a jug of water, and a big jug, and it's filled with all of this activation or dysregulation, because dysregulation is actually just energy in our bodies. And what I need to do is get rid of some of that energy, get it out of my body. And so instead of, I wouldn't dump this whole thing over, it would be too overwhelming. It's like if I had a spigot on the bottle and I can take a little bit and get it out of my system. And that's what we're doing when we're regulating, especially out of sympathetic. So I think of each state, like this is a state, sympathetic, as a country. So it's not just a one-stop shop. Imagine it's as big as Brazil. So if I said to somebody, if I went to Brazil and someone said, "Where'd you go?" And I said, "Brazil." They'd be like, "Yeah, but where? It's really big." "No, I just went to Brazil." So great. That would be really weird, right? Because it's a big place. There's so many different places to be. Each state in our nervous system is like that. So I do a number system, like 1 least extreme experience, 10 most extreme. So if I'm in sympathetic at a 1 to a 5, let's say, in intensity, that means like I've got uncomfortability in my body. There's an urgency. It feels sort of manageable, but I've got some nervousness and maybe some, anxiety, but not overwhelming. So when I'm there, I need to mobilize or move my body, but not as intensely as if I was at a 5, 2, and 10. So what I mean by that is I feel a little nervous or a little overwhelmed. Me sitting and meditating could be really helpful because my system essentially thinks there's a lion chasing me, but the lion's a half a mile away. So I have time to settle and reset myself. So doing something like a sitting meditation could be helpful. Qigong, some gentle yoga, and so on and so forth. If I am at a 5 to a 10 in intensity, heightened anxiety, feeling like I can't sit still, so much tension, that's like a lion being 20 feet away from me. And imagine how weird it would be if I said, "Hey, on Instagram, I heard that it's really good to do, yoga and meditation. Do that with me." No one would do that. They'd be like, "No, I need to run away." Which is why we do not want to be sitting still when we are in a heightened sympathetic place. So if you try to meditate when you're having heightened anxiety, you're going to get more anxious. Or you try to do yoga when you're heightened anxiety, you're going to get more anxiety. So instead, we want to move our bodies. So things like going for a walking meditation walk, or walking meditation is great. Swaying, humming, tapping, letting your body shake to move that energy out. Putting music on, letting your body move in a particular way. Using our breath is so helpful. And this leads me to a second important thing here. When you're in sympathetic, the best thing you can do is shorter inhalations, longer exhalations. That actually helps to get rid of a lot of that extra energy we're experiencing. So very simple breathing cycle is inhale for 4 through your nose, hold your breath for 7 seconds, exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds, like you're blowing out a candle. So really making the air go out slow. That helps to relieve some of that energy. The very worst thing you can do when you're in sympathetic is hyperventilating breath work. And breath work has a place, but if you're in a heightened sympathetic and you go to do a breath work class, you are literally telling your nervous system, the line is closer, the line is closer, the line is closer. So this is what happens is a lot of people go and they get a cathartic release. Why am I crying? Because my system thinks I'm literally going to die. And then after, people can feel a little fuzzy, which is different than regulated. That means I've gone into this little bit of a dorsally place, which we actually don't want. That creates more dysregulation. So when you're in sympathetic, I do not recommend doing more rapid breath work. It's going to create more dysregulation. Now, when you're in dorsal, it's really different. In dorsal, we want to bring energy in because I'm shut down. So the thing I don't want to do is that shorter inhalation, longer inhalation breath I just named. Absolutely not. If you do that in dorsal, you're going to get more shut down. Instead, we want to bring small amounts of energy in. So this would be a time to do short amounts of a rapid breath, like inhale quickly, exhale quickly, just a couple times. That brings energy in our bodies. And we want to do things that support us to come, remember, I'm not in my body, to come back in. So that might be use all your senses that you have access to, touch something, smell something, see something, taste something, so that I can come back into my body. And then other things like I named, tapping, vibrational sounds, gentle movement, are all going to be really, 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 really helpful. The last thing about freeze that I just want to say is freeze is like being in a finger trap, like that you used to have as a kid. The natural inclination when you're in freeze, you're stuck, is to try to break my way out of it. But the rule of freeze is if it's equal parts sympathetic and dorsal. So if I bring in more energy, like I'm trapped, I just need to do the thing. If I bring in more of that sympathetic energy, more of the dorsal stuckness is going to come in. So just like a finger trap, if you pull your fingers, you get more stuck. So instead, when we're here, we want to bring in small amounts of mobilizing energy, small amounts of movement or vibration or sound, similarly to like we would when we're in dorsal. Oh, one last thing. And when we're in dorsal, the very worst thing you could do would be a closed eye meditation. So as a dissociator for most of my life, so dissociation means I'm fully leaving my body to not be in this present moment. That's too much. When I used to meditate in my early years of meditation while being in dorsal, I would close my eyes. I thought it was fun. I would say, like, I don't know if 2 minutes went by or 7 years. I just sort of disappeared. That means that is actually increasing my system's ability to dissociate. So when I'm leaving my body when I'm dissociating. So if I close my eyes, it's going to actually support me to leave my body further, like I'm floating into outer space. So I do not recommend, if you're feeling hopeless, shut down, apathetic, that you do that. Instead, it'd be great to open your eyes and maybe stand outside and go for a really slow walk. Move your body, a meditative walk that way. But what I hope is people are seeing it's very nuanced. There is no one size fits all, and it's so important that we understand that.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to hear you explain it in these ways. It adds a lot of granularity and color to my rudimentary understanding of this. And something that was coming up as you were sharing this is, I mean, for me personally, my first memory, I grew up in a wonderful household. Everything was wonderful, but for whatever reason, my first memory is one of fear and very afraid of losing my parents, losing connection. So anxious attachment. And thankfully, I was able to work through it. My mother was an amazing person, and continues to be, that was able to guide me through these challenging times. And now, thankfully, I have tools, and I still struggle. I mean, I have physical, we call them ailments or expressions of this anxiety, but it's manageable. And what was coming up for me as you were speaking was, when we are in the presence of somebody who is dysregulated, and we have some awareness of that which you're sharing here, what shall we know as co-regulators, supporting somebody who is dysregulated? And yeah, how do we learn to identify what the person needs? I know this is now you need to go through training for this, but can you give us a little taste of what that would be?
Yeah. I think the greatest gift we can give the world is to heal ourselves, because it heals the world. That is true. If you want to help the world, do that, because nervous systems affect nervous systems. If you're a parent, do this work. It's what your kid needs more than anything else, is your regulated nervous system. And I don't want parents to be like, oh my goodness, do I have to get this right all the time? No, you don't. That's not, we need to get it right about 30% of the time, is what research shows us. So
30%.
yeah, not so bad.
I'm killing it.
Right, exactly. But it also tells us, with a lot of our parents, who are loving and amazing, no one taught them this, right? So they just did the best they knew how from their own state of dysregulation. And so nervous systems regulate each other. One of my friends and mentors and colleague, Deb Danis, years ago said to me in a training with a bunch of other therapists, she said, which is kind of a lot to ask, but she said, if the clinician or practitioner is not in a session, is not in ventral regulation, you should stop the session, because there's no clinician or therapist in the room. There's no one to help. So that doesn't mean like stop the session entirely, but it means that that person needs to get regulated. Because if I'm if let's say someone is dysregulated around me and I am dysregulated with them, there is no one who can help. So when we embody this work, what our job to do is to maintain our own regulation. And at the same time, it's really nuanced, that we don't want to have a steel wall of a boundary where I'm not feeling for the other person. It's the more that I do this work, I'm not afraid of your anxiety, because I know what it feels like in my body and I know how to regulate out of it, which means then I don't have to be afraid of yours. I don't have to be afraid of someone's depression. I don't have to be afraid of my child's terror even, or their fear, because I know my own fear. I've gone there. I know my own, and I know the way out. But a lot of us had parents who didn't know their own because they didn't go there, and they had no idea how to get out. So when we experienced fear, they tried to manage it by telling us it was going to be fine, or problem solving, because that's the only thing they knew to do, which does not help us. Instead, our job is to say, okay, in order to help you, I've got to get a little regulation in my system. And my job is not to be scared of you're scared. That's what I say a lot, especially when working with parents. But I have to not be scared of you're scared. So then I can hold that, and then I can attune with your experience. That means I can touch into it. I can feel it without in a codependent way drowning in it, because then I can't help. So I can touch into or feel, oh, I get how that's really scary that's coming up. I can feel that. I can even feel it in my own body. And that attuning on what's called an autonomic level, because attunement is beyond words, it's feeling with someone, that actually is while having regulation, is the thing that helps their nervous system to regulate. We're not actually trying to manipulate their system or problem solve it. If I can hold that safety and regulation in my own nervous system and then feel into what you feel, your nervous system will come out of that. It's beautiful. So yes, we are all acting as healers, because when we do that, we heal others.
Right. Yeah, working on yourself is the key. I used to say something which I'm as you were bringing this up, I started thinking back at in my performance coaching. I got to a place where I was pretty saturated, and overwhelmed. So I would go places and I would say, I don't care about your problems, but I do care about what you intend to do about your problems. And it
Mm.
was my only way of trying to connect with people in that way, where I could separate myself a little bit, but I had to be there.
Yeah.
And I found that to be pretty challenging, and navigating setting those boundaries for oneself, and also, yeah, having the awareness to not get carried away. I mean, right now I have a toddler in the house, so it's easy to go on a roller coaster ride, and
Yep.
to not get carried away requires some preparation. You've already answered this, but for you and for those that you work with that have come through the darkest of times and been able to overcome that which has been debilitating in many ways, what does the maintenance look like? What does the sustainability look like?
Mm.
Are there daily practices that you follow or recommend, or is it simply the awareness and the return to the work that has been done when needed?
Mm. Such a good question. I think our Western society is a system that is built on dysregulation. So we evolved so slow. Evolution happens very, very slow. We have not evolved to live in the current world that we live in, um, whatsoever. Having the entire world in a phone is conducive to dysregulation, because no nervous system can handle that much inundation with even if it's all positive information. We can't handle that much of it. I live in Los Angeles. Do you live in Los Angeles, Carl?
I live in San Francisco.
Okay. So cities. So here's the thing about a city. Cities create a lot of dysregulation. There is so much noise. There is so much stimulation. There are so many people. There's crime, of course, in every city, more than maybe in the country somewhere. There's less nature. So all of that, and there's tends to be more things we're doing, more commitments, more things, more stuff happening. So I share that. And then we all have jobs. Or, yes, we all have jobs, including anybody who's staying home with a child. That is the most important job and the hardest, I would say.
Hmm.
So our jobs are also not conducive for the way we've evolved. We really haven't evolved past working maybe more than 3 to 4 hours a day, which is what we were doing when we were hunting and gathering. And then we would sit around together in community and dance and chant and things like that. We were living much more conducive to regulation lives. So I share this because I want everybody to know that just regular old life is something that we have to contend against. Contending is that I work online. Computers are not conducive to regulation. Being indoors all the time, not conducive to that. So what I am always doing, but that has now become a strong neural pathway, something that like a reflex, like making my coffee in the morning or brushing my teeth, that I regulate all the time throughout my day. So that means that after this call, I'll probably go in my backyard with my dog and I will smell something, a flower, anything that I can find that I can smell that's natural, that belongs to the earth. And I'll do that for a couple of minutes. Then I come back inside and do something else. Then at some point, I'm probably going to turn a song on and let my body move, not like dance well, let my nervous system discharge energy. And then I'm probably, and anyway, my point is throughout the day, that is a regular part of my life. And I need that in order to maintain nervous system hygiene. Just like we wouldn't say, oh, I'm in perfect shape, I guess I'm good forever.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean that you have to be going to do like Olympic weightlifting, but I still got to go for walks and go for hikes and maybe raise my heart rate sometimes and maybe lift some things that are heavier so that I can maintain strength. And that's what it's like for our nervous systems too. But the cool thing is the more we practice it, it just becomes second nature, just a way of being where
Mm.
I'm always knowing where I am in my nervous system. There's never a time I don't know, and not in a hypervigilant way, but I just know. So if I'm dysregulated, I'm going to say, oh, bad idea to make a choice from this place. I'm going to choose something that's probably not right for me. I'm going to say something I don't want to say. I'm going to do something that's not my truth. I'm going to regulate first and then make a choice from truth. So yeah, it becomes a way of living, and it's a really freaking empowered way to live.
Yeah, feels like it. And as you were saying that, this idea of resourcing, is that what that is in many ways?
Yeah, it is. I would say it's a couple things. It's we are resourcing things that bring regulation, so we're definitely doing that. We're also capacity building. So
Mm,
something that I like to say a lot is, especially for people who feel behind in life or feel like, oh, I really want to be in this other place, that every single person that we know, again, including the people we look up to, are living the life that their nervous system has capacity for. Because good things that we desire, all the good things, they have energy involved with them. And so it requires us to be able to hold that. So it's a lot for our system. It just doesn't feel good at first. It's a lot to hold. And so my nervous system does not have the capacity to hold the life I'm going to have in 3 years. I don't. It's a good thing 3 years isn't happening today because I'm not ready to meet that yet. And so I want to share that for everybody who feels like behind. No, you're right on time. And each day where I'm doing these things that are capacity building, I'm regulating, I'm processing energy, I am working on holding that bigger life so that when that life arrives, I can hold it and I can be with it. And that to me, as somebody who always felt behind, really helped me change my orientation to the pace of things unfolding.
yeah, that's a big one. Another thing that comes up, and this is now kind of bringing this to a gentle land, how important is, you mentioned hygiene, kind of like a cleansing. How important is organization and structure? I mean, I'm just observing your bookshelf, and you've color coordinated your books. Uh, how important is environmental organization to facilitate regulation?
I would say everything in our in external world is a representation of our inner. And so it's it's well, I guess I'll just say it this way. The organization of my books on my shelf could mean two things. It could mean that I am in regulation, and that is what's pleasing to me. It could also mean I'm in sympathetic and I need to control things as a way to feel safe. So if you're a sympathetic dominant person, you're the person that always has the pillows fluffed and they're like karate chopped in the middle so they look really nice, and you can't possibly have the counters not wiped down because if you do all of these things, then you can feel a sense of safety. Just want to notate that's an external control thing. But I
I'm
will,
with you.
yeah, and I'm a person who really knows that. But I will also say that when our life is able to reflect uh, an experience of freedom, freedom, then it actually helps to create more internal freedom because I really believe co-regulation happens not just with people, but with everything. So me having plants in my home, that creates more regulation for me. Me walking into the living room and not seeing laundry, a pile of laundry that needs to be folded or things out or whatever, that reflects back to me peace because I'm experiencing visually peace. I'm smelling. I like having things that smell nice in my home because those represent safety and peace, which then inside of me, I experience more of that. And so I do invite folks to really think about what registers as good and yummy and warm and inviting and makes you feel really good when you see it, feel it, touch it, smell it. Bring that into your house. Bring that into your office space because that's going to create more regulation for you. That's a really simple, practical thing that you can do that's going to create shifts. And if you start to notice chaos in your house, that's probably a representation of what's happening inside too.
Yeah, that's a big one. Just yesterday, from our garden, I picked some lavender that was dried out because I want to have it here
Yeah.
next to my computer just to smell because it does bring me that sense of okay, I feel connected to this moment. It feels freeing and warm and nice. So I really love that. Sarah, what is it that you are excited about these days when it comes to your work in terms of what you're sharing, and how can people connect with that?
Hmm. Well, I do. It's so important to me to make this work accessible. So you can find me on Instagram at Sarah with an HB coaching. I've got lots of free resources. I also have a free quiz that when you take it, totally free, it's going to let you know where you hang out in your nervous system the most. I really love that free offering. And it's going to send you emails and videos on what to do to regulate out of that place. Um, And then you can find me at sarahbaldwincoaching.com. And I've got lots and lots of offerings. Right now, I have a 8-week program that's really I feel really always very excited about this because it's a holistic roadmap to healing. And I think so much of the time we don't know where to start. And we might start at a place that's not actually a starting place and then feel like something's wrong with us because it didn't quite work right. So this is guiding people through the real holistic process of healing and the roadmap of it. It's called You Make Sense.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Well, thank you for taking us on a journey just through your ability to teach and tell a story. I went through several emotions. There was a moment where I was clenching my fingers together. There was another moment you were talking about safety that I felt like crying. So thank you for sharing in that way. I felt very connected to that, which you have to offer, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. It really means so much and thank you for the work that you do in the world. Means so much. And for everyone listening, I so appreciate your time. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
This is the freestyle way.